and I am here with Roxanne Eng today. And so she is a life coach specializing in enlightened relationships. So super excited to have her with us. Thank you for joining us. Do you want to share a little bit about your story and kind of your why and why you started your business?
Absolutely. Thanks, Angie, for having me today.
Yes.
So a little bit of my story, ever since I was a little girl, I knew within my soul, I knew something deep down that I was meant to do something that was going to impact humanity. I just didn't know what that was going to be. My whole life, I've helped people through transitions in their life, through transformations in their life without even being a life coach. It was just something that came naturally to me. And one day I just had an aha moment that why am I not doing this for the world? Why am I just limiting myself to my family and my friends and to other people that cross my path? So then that's when I decided to start my business.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I know you do life coaching, and then you also have some very specific certifications. I know one of which is in enlightened relationships. But do you want to share some of your other certifications with everyone?
Absolutely. So I'm certified as a life coach. I'm certified as a transformational life coach. I'm certified as a purpose life coach. That's my true passion, is finding someone's purpose. I also have certifications in confidence building, confidence strengthening, and behavioral patterns and behavioral coaching.
That's a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So today we are going to focus on enlightened relationships, which I'm excited to learn about too, because when I saw that and when we started connecting, I thought, okay, what the heck is an enlightened relationship? So enlighten us, please. What is an enlightened relationship and how is it different from a quote unquote typical relationship?
Right. So an enlightened relationship really the relationship isn't itself enlightened, it's the people that are in it are enlightened. So which typically entails that both people are enlightened and they're awakened in their journey. So they're very self-reflective, they understand who they are, and they both consciously and subconsciously want to be in an enlightened relationship. And the thing is that when both people want to be in a relationship, they don't need to be in a relationship. There's no codependency. They don't need to be with that person financially, emotionally, physically. They don't need that person. They want that person in their life. And with that being said, is in order to have that type of relationship, you need to be able to have left your past baggage behind, and you have needed to have done the work to fix any behavioral patterns or any relationship patterns that potentially that you've experienced in the past, and you have to leave that in the past and be able to move forward and recognize the issues that you had before and be able to rectify those in an enlightened relationship. So another thing is that both are always continuously doing their own self-work. They're always trying to gain more knowledge, always trying to better themselves, and always supporting each other in this journey. And so I kind of think of it like this. So when soulmates plus compatibility plus preparedness plus the right tools equals an enlightened relationship.
That's awesome.
We can write everything down that we want in our ideal person, right? We can have a list with 100 things that we want in that person, but until we are that person that we're asking for, vibrationally, we'll never attract the right person. So it's very important that we are the person that we're asking for.
That's awesome. I like that. And
Yeah.
I know one of the things that I always talk about too is if you're, as a female entrepreneur, if you want your business here and you expect here your actions and your behaviors and your habits have to reflect that. You have to act like the person that you are striving to become. So it sounds like it's very similar.
Absolutely. And it all, encompasses the laws of attraction, and not just the law of attraction, because I've studied all the universal laws. But in order for the law of attraction to attract what you want in your life, you also need to have the law of vibration, law of correspondence. There's many other different laws that you need to have in conjunction with the law of attraction to attract those things. And if you don't do the self-work and find your own soul and be okay with yourself and love yourself, and that's the thing in an enlightened relationship, both people love themselves and they know that they're both individuals and they love their individuality, and that never gets enmeshed, right?
Mhm.
You're always your own person. You always have your own friend time or whatever time that you need to be yourself, your alone time reading a book. That is never impeded on in an enlightened relationship. That would be a typical relationship.
Okay, gotcha. That clarifies it. And if anyone has questions as well, you can feel free to comment below in the live. If you're watching this on replay, please make sure you comment hashtag replay so we know. And then I have a couple other questions for you too. So as far as enlightened relationships, is this only specific to intimate or romantic relationships?
No, like majority of the time when we talk about soulmates, people think, oh, partner, like an intimate partner, but it doesn't always necessarily have to be that way. An enlightened relationship could be a friendship that you have, and it should, the laws of the friendship in a relationship should be the same. You would never have a lower expectation of a friend than you would your lover and or a parent or anyone in your circle, right? Because if you know who you are and you're awakened and you're enlightened, you're not going to tolerate negativity or bad relationships around you, right? You're going to want the best for your life because you love yourself and you respect yourself and you know that you're worthy of more than that.
Yes.
So when it comes to friendships, it's the same thing. You would want someone that you have compatibility with, someone that wants to grow with you, who wants to see you grow, who supports your growth and isn't hindering anything or any aspect of your life.
Hmm. Okay, awesome. So this is for all relationships,
This
which
could
is
be for all relationships.
amazing. Yeah. And it is important always, to make sure that we are very intentional about the people that we're spending our time with, whether
Yeah.
it's romantically or not. And it's okay to, and sometimes it's hard to realize, but it's okay to unfriend people, right? It's okay to make a conscious decision to move away from a relationship, either friendship or romantically, either temporarily or permanently. That's okay.
Yeah. And I
So,
always, and my thought process is, are they adding value to my life?
yes.
Right? Because I'm adding value to theirs. I'm not going in, I go in with full support, full love, everything. I will give you the shirt off my back. I will make sure that you're successful. If this is your dream, I will push you towards your dream. So am I giving and am I receiving the same in return? And then that's the question. Are they adding value to your life? Because if they're not, then it's toxicity. There's no in between. There's no black or white.
You and I think exactly the same. I just went through this practice not too long ago. And I kind of went through as more of a mental list, but said, okay, let's look at these relationships. And we have so little time to spend, so little quote unquote free time, right? So I
Right.
said, okay, is this a win-win? Are we positively affecting each other's lives, right? Are we positively influencing each other? And if not, then it's okay. We're just not going to spend time together. That's okay. But sometimes it's so hard to get to that point, because we're brought up, don't hurt people's feelings, da da da. And it's almost like that always say yes mentality.
It's
It's
because
okay to say no and to say yes to yourself. And it's so important.
right. And that's part of the conditioning, right? Is to always be nice and to never speak our mind, but that's not reality. And if we're going to ask for a friendship or a relationship, we have to live with it for the rest of our life, right? So what our decisions that we make impacts our life, and who we want in it is massive. It's
Yeah.
massive to our success. It's massive to anything, because if you have an unsupportive system and an unsupportive friendship and an unsupportive relationship, it's going to be really hard for you to become the successful person that you are because you have no support system.
Yep.
So sometimes you have to remove something out of your life for something better to come into it. And that comes with friendship and relationship and in any regard.
Yes, totally agree. I get so excited. I'm like, yes, yes, girl, yes. And I love it. And that's one of the things, one of my goals in starting the Facebook group and, these interviews too, is to be able to provide a community and a connection so that people can hear, not only from me, right? This group isn't about me. This group is about you. This group is about you if you're watching this, right? So this group is about so much more than just me, it's about you. And I really want to build a community that is supportive and loving so that women have a place to go for that. Because our online relationships, especially now with everything going on, I found within my business, my online relationships to me are just as critical as my local face-to-face relationships. And I never thought I would say that. And to me, I had always thought, okay, well, if it's a virtual friendship in essence, right, it's not the same. But I'm finding the opposite. Like we had talked a little bit before that, the network of women and what we do has become global, and it's so impactful. So
And
I
when
love
you
that.
and when you connect your soul with someone and you have the same mission and the same vision as someone for life and to help others,
Yes.
right? Like no matter what friendship you have, if you don't have that vision and that passion for life, and you can't share your passion the same as you can with somebody that has the same passion as you, it's mind blowing. That friendship and relationship it's mind blowing,
Yes.
right?
Totally agree. That's awesome. And then, so can someone, as far as it, and this may be different than enlightened relationships, but let's talk about love for a minute,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Love,
talk to us about love, right? Ooh,
my
can,
favorite.
yeah, it's everyone's favorite, right? Can someone be addicted to love? Is that a thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm sure we've all had some friends or family members that we've seen go into relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship, and that is an addiction to love. And what happens in our psychological brain is that falling in love is a chemical reaction in our brain. So when we fall in love with someone, our endorphins, all those wonderful brain chemicals come into effect and we fall in love with that person. But let's say if we aren't right with ourselves before we meet this person. I have, maybe I suffer from depression or I have a lot of anxiety or I just don't love myself. And I get into this relationship and all the excitement and the high of the chemicals, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like all my problems are gone. Like this person's so amazing. They're so wonderful. You don't really see anything wrong with the relationship. And then you get into about 6 months into the relationship, and then you start feeling like how you did before you got into the relationship, because now the high is no longer a high and you're becoming back to reality. And then all these issues that you once had before start coming back and resurfacing again. Then you start questioning, well, it must be the person. It must be the person I'm with. Like maybe something's wrong with the relationship, or they're just not doing it for me anymore. I just don't feel the same about him anymore, or her about her anymore. Like one minute I love her and the next minute I want to strangle her. Like, how is that possible? Well, that's a love addiction, and then they want to escape the relationship because they no longer have those feelings and now they're feeling their true feelings. So then what happens? You want to get to the next high, right? So then the next relationship comes in and it's just a cycle that never ends until you do the self work to realize that it's an actual your own pattern.
Okay. So then basically you're experiencing the honeymoon phase, right? And then it fizzles out, and then you kind of go back again. So circle after circle, right?
Right. And it's like a vicious cycle until you stop the pattern. It's a pattern, right? And if you don't fix yourself, and this is why an enlightened relationship is so important, that both people are doing their self-work, because if not, it's not an enlightened relationship. It's a typical relationship, which more than likely you will never get the happiness that you can from an enlightened. Well, you can't. You physically cannot, and your soul, everything cannot have that happiness until you have that enlightened relationship. And everyone is capable of doing it. You just have to want to do the work to do it.
Yeah. And often
Yeah.
people don't want to do the work.
No,
Right.
people don't want to. They just want to get into a relationship. Like, oh, I'm in a relationship. I'm good to go. Like, let it ride out, right?
Right.
But that's not reality, and that's not the relationship that they know that they don't want that relationship. Now they're settling, right? And some people are okay to settle. Some people are comfortable with that because it's a comfortable feeling, and it's something that they've seen growing up, or something that they saw their friends' parents do it, or they saw their own parents do it, which just made it normal to them. But it is not normal, because everyone deserves an enlightened relationship. It's just if they want it or not.
So how do you, or is it possible? So how do you make that honeymoon phase last? And is it possible for that to endure through the length or lifetime of the relationship?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll kind of give some context to the honeymoon phase. So the honeymoon phase it actually stems from like our caveman days. So what would happen, because as a man, his job was to procreate and to create life on earth. And so what they would do is they would find their mate, they would, have sexual relations with their mate, have a baby, and the male would stay there. And this is why a honeymoon phase typically lasts from 6 months to 3 years. So as soon as the baby would be about 3 years old, and they would be self-sufficient, because he'd have to go do the hunting while she's pregnant and while the baby's a baby, be the protector, like do all those things in caveman era. So then what happens is that after the 3 years where she's okay to be self-sufficient now and the baby is at a good age, he moves on to the next female and impregnates the next female. So that's where the honeymoon phase comes from.
Dirty
So
dog.
dirty dog. But nowadays that's not acceptable, right? Because now we have romance and love and things that we didn't have over 500 years ago. So Western love has kind of really changed the way that we look at love from when we were cavemen, right? So, which is pretty interesting. So, yeah. So, and in order to sustain that
Mhm.
honeymoon phase in the relationship, and if you have an enlightened relationship, you're always going to do things to spark each other's fire. You will, if you're always working on yourself and working on the relationship for spiritual growth and for growth in the relationship, there's no recipe for failure. There's no recipe for failure. So if you continue to work on your relationship and build that alone time, build in that date night, build in a little vacation, whatever makes you guys happy and makes you connect as a couple, that's what you need to do.
Mhm.
And as long as you're doing those things, you will never fall out of love with that person.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you have to be intentional, right? So you can't move from, hey, we're going to date and I'm going to try to woo you, to we're married and I'm good, right? Like that doesn't work. You have to be intentional and still put forth effort, like you said, not only on the relationship, but also within yourself.
Yes.
And I know that's important in our family. And that's something we try to do, is focus on ourselves and focus on our family and marriage and each other too. And it is work. It's not, I mean, anyone that says relationships are easy, I just don't know if I agree, and I don't know if you agree. I don't want to speak for you, but their work and their effort, but it's worth it, to have
And
that.
I think relationships are work, but if you're in the right relationship, it's good work, right? Like
Hmm. Yeah.
it's never going to be perfect. No relationship is perfect. No one's asking for a perfect relationship. But it's the fact that you keep it consistent and work on it with it, like with each other, and never give up. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Because that's when failure kicks in, is if you both give up. And sometimes you'll have one partner who will kind of, like distance themselves throughout a relationship, and it'll kind of be more of a pull and tug. But that's a typical relationship. That's not the relationship that you want for the rest of your life. The relationship that you want is that you're both going together and not like this, right? So it's more
Right.
consistent, it's more stable.
Hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I have loved this conversation. Now I feel enlightened about enlightened relationships. So thank you